First tonight, when a company runs up a $140 million debt, someone is going to get hurt. When Peter Evans and John Simper's fertiliser empire collapsed, decent farmers and traders around the country took a huge hit. The pain seems greater because the former South Australian directors continue to enjoy access to fancy boats and drive flash cars, while their creditors are forced to battle to recover just some of the millions they've lost. Here's Hendrik Gout with this investigation.
You cannot believe it's all happened, but it's happened, all right.
It's not a $2 or $3 million farce that's happened here. This is a $130 million debacle.
It's not often that a multi-million-dollar business collapse spanning 3 states ends here, the sleepy holiday village of Port Vincent on South Australia's Yorke Peninsula. And it's not often that the world of high finance and international commodity trading intersects with Canalpan, population 215, on the edge of the 90-mile desert. But when worlds collide, people get hurt.
If it wasn't for my family that support me, there's no way I would have been able to survive this.
John Simper lives next to a park with his own swimming pool and a fancy Ford in the driveway.
Coming off you, mate. I can't help you, sorry.
And Peter Evans drives a BMW and is building a 2-storey home.
Oh, I'm sorry, but can I please refer you to the right channel?
Certainly Peter Evans is a self-described company director and a landholder of note.
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above.
This is the Evans family spread near Balaclava in the mid-north. And there is other property, 84,000 acres at Glenora's Station near Broken Hill, and another at World's End near Robertstown. The businesses they ran were called Megafert and Interfert, which bought and then imported fertiliser to sell to farmers and wholesalers all over the country. Fertiliser is to land what oil is to automobiles, nearly 200 million tonnes traded annually, and the potential profits staggering. Both are smart businessmen with many assets protected by a matrix of personal companies and trusts, all perfectly legal. Yet, despite their still apparent wealth, Mr. Evans and Simper's fertiliser companies ran up debts of around $140 million.
For some of the people that are involved, but at the end of the day, I really have to refer you to court of benefit or to our legal advisors.
Unfortunately, there are always men who lose when companies go belly up. Men like Donald Carter from Laharam Bulk Handling in Horsham, Victoria. He's been in the business since 1982.
We own transports and we own a grain storage, and fertiliser and grain go hand in hand, because without fertiliser you don't grow grain. So we provide a total service with our fertiliser. We sell it, transport it, spread it, and do all those little bits and pieces that the others can't do.
In 2008, fertiliser prices worldwide suddenly collapsed. Almost overnight, Interfert's huge stockpile halved in value. The debt to the NAB Bank nudged $140 million. They were in strife. However, the bank agreed to a deal, repay $40 million, and they would write off $100 million. But where to get that sort of money? Continuing pre-sales. They came to you and said, we can do you a better deal if you pay upfront before the fertiliser is delivered.
That is correct.
Did you have any qualms about that?
It was something I had never done before. Obviously, any new thing, one after being in the industry for a long time, is cautious about. Having a look at the whole thing, it appeared to be okay.
What they did was arranged millions of dollars in orders, prepaid, from the likes of Donald Carter and others. But what became apparent down the track was that there was no absolute certainty that Interfert would be able to supply the product. Adrian March in Canalpan, who's been in business 38 years, signed up.
We prepaid for fertiliser, to Interfert and they were unable to deliver.
Donald Carter put in several $100,000.
We're not one of the biggest creditors either. I mean, there's another story that a guy in Western Victoria, he went for 3.5 million.
And they took orders from Ian Millington in Blythe.
The situation we got into, there wasn't any fertiliser there when we went to pick it up.
We were told that it was coming, and it will be coming, and it is coming, but it never came to fruition.
So from here, they ran their multi-million-dollar operation, but the sting was in their tail. They told stories that the ship had been delayed, that they were refinancing the company, that all was well. And you trusted him?
Totally, yes.
From Interfert orders fertiliser from overseas by the 50,000-tonne bulk carrier, $27 million a shipment. And he came. Simper desperately needed product to fill the orders that they'd taken.
We supplied around $4 million worth of fertiliser. We sent it over from Western Australia to South Australia. I have to point out, at the time I wasn't aware of any issues or any problems that Interfert had. I became aware of that when the bill wasn't paid.
What the creditors also didn't appear to appreciate was that their prepayments would end up in a different company's bank account, and a new company, set up by Evans's friend Paul Duckett, eventually used those funds to repay Interfert's $40 million debt to the bank. And then Evans and Simper went hunting for new finance to resuscitate the business.
Peter informed me that they don't have finance for the business and they're looking for finance for the business elsewhere, overseas.
They headed overseas, first to Bahrain. But there was no joy among the petrodollars. It was time to change countries. This is Zug, a charming city in central Switzerland. Not only does it have Swiss banks, it also has the lowest taxes in Switzerland. Here, Evans and Simper chatted with Western Gulf Advisory, an asset management company of now dubious reputation, but had no luck. They returned empty-handed, eventually placed their companies into voluntary liquidation, and later, the companies were wound up. Meanwhile, you're waiting for your $4 million.
That's right, yes.
In 2012, both Evans and Simper found themselves in the Federal Court of Australia, being examined by the liquidators of Interfert Australia, who wanted to know how they pulled off the deal with the bank.
You couldn't just pay across $40-odd million to Duckett as your stooge to pay the NAB to get them off your back. You couldn't do that, could you?
That was never the intent.
Because that would just be a straight fraud, wouldn't it?
Well, I guess so, yes.
Legal though it was, the creditors felt they were the big players in the Great Escape.
I'd say there's a fair groundswell of resentment of what's happened to various other members of the community, farming community, farmers and businesses he's already affected.
And what really outrages them is that Simper and Evans seem to have escaped relatively unscathed financially. Sure, not as rich as they could be, but they appear to have access, through trusts, to a few company toys. There's a $300,000 47-foot Bayliner motor cruiser moored at Port Adelaide, purchased through Interfert and registered in the name of John Simper's son. And the Bayliner isn't the only yacht in the fleet. The company also bought a Sea Fox 216, described by Mr. Evans as
Just a little fishing boat.
Where is the boat now?
It's at Port Vincent, at the house, or the shack as we call it.
So who has access to the Port Vincent property now?
Peter Evans and John Simper.
Port Vincent is a charming village. If you wanted a holiday house here, you'd probably save a deposit and get a bank loan. In this case, Interfert bought the property and $13,000 worth of furniture and linen.
The Port Vincent house is still there, isn't it?
Yes.
Even John Simper's house, nearly $500,000, in John Simper's words, paid for out of Interfert Australia Proprietary Limited's bank account into a director's loan account. But Mr Simper is reluctant to talk about Interfert's creditors. Will they be able to get their money back?
No idea. Better talk to the liquidator and my lawyer.
How do you feel about the fact that you've had to cost them money?
Like everybody. Sorry, Hendrik.
But can't you see that they're doing a lot worse than you are? Mr Evans, is it true that you're building a $500,000 house now? Is that true?
No, sorry, I just can't.
Are you building a new house
I'm
now?
not at liberty to talk about it.
You're not
Sorry.
at liberty to talk about a house that you're building. I understand it's a two-storey house, 900 square metres under roof.
I'm sorry, but...
The liquidators have managed to create a fund of a few million. Evans and Simper say they hope that that might provide some return for their customers, but it will be well short of anything that the customers might be owed, and is still the subject of dispute. Meanwhile, the creditors have long memories. The two people, Mr Evans and Mr Simper, how would you regard them today?
Not very well.
Has it ever occurred to you to maybe drive up to Balaclava and knock on his door and ask for your money back?
Look, yes, we have been there a couple of times, but no one has been home. At this stage, there's so much anger in me that I'm not sure that what will I do if I have to face Peter.
Well, Mr Evans and Mr Simper say they are working with the liquidators, and it would be inappropriate for them to comment on some issues at this stage, but we'll certainly keep you informed. Hendrik Gout with that report. But coming up next, no more needles, the medical breakthrough in vaccinations.